Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Smith versus Zepeda fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Smith is 15-0 with 11 KOs and Zepeda is 37-4 with 28 KOs. This fight is for the WBC Silver Super Lightweight title. Smith's last fight was a win via TKO in round 7 versus Maxwell, and Zepeda's last fight was a loss via a unanimous decision versus Hitchens. This is in Smith's hometown of Sheffield. Zepeda is a southpaw. Zepeda is 34 and Smith is 27. Zepeda's losses have come versus Hitchens in 2023, Prograis in 2021, Ramirez in 2019 and Flanagan in 2015. To speak about what I've just said there, obviously this is the opportunity and it's branded as the opportunity for Smith to get to that world level, and it is a big step up in opponents for him, and it's his first ex-world level, just kind of teetering on world level opponent, and it's a tough opponent. I quite like it as an opponent for him, and I believe it is going to progress him if he does, of course, win this and win this in good fashion. I think this is going to progress him nicely onto the next step, and I've been hearing Eddie Hearn talk about him this week, and it seems as though there's big opportunities ahead for Dalton Smith if he does get through this. Like I say, in impressive fashion would help as well. Obviously, there's still for a WBC title, so nonetheless, it's still a big deal and it's still an interesting fight. And Smith now progressing away from that British level, which he has been at and has conquered and has achieved a lot of success in, but now, like I've mentioned, into that of the world scene. Last time out though, impressive performance from him against Maxwell, and managed to get a clean, precise, sharp stoppage, and it was amazing to watch that ringside. I had the privilege of doing so, and yeah, it was a very impressive stoppage, and it really showed his ability, and like I mentioned, showed that he is that level above the British level. And Zepeda's last fight though was a poor performance from him. I can't really say anything but that Hitchens was impressive. You know that he is a talent and he is one of the top fighters in the division, but when you look at fighters and being arguably past their best, you might have to look at Zepeda here and think possibly that is the case. If we see anything like that performance he put out against Hitchens in this fight versus Dalton Smith, it could be a relatively more comfortable night than what people might expect for Smith, because that performance from Zepeda was a very poor performance. I'm going to get into it a bit more in just a moment, but yeah, it was poor. Smith, obviously, yet again in his hometown of Sheffield, is used to fighting there now, and he's used to having that added pressure that comes with being in the hometown. And hopefully, if he goes on to, like I mentioned, win this, then possibly he could then set up that huge fight in Hillsborough, which of course is one of the main goals for him. Zepeda though, a southpaw, I believe arguably one of Smith's first southpaws, if his first southpaw that he's faced in the professional ranks. I might be wrong with that, but so it's going to add another new challenge for Smith going into this one. Zepeda, obviously, like I mentioned, clear age gap. The losses on his resume, they're still top level guys really when you look at his losses, and the Prograis one especially wasn't a bad loss. He still hurt Prograis at times and he looked good at points, and so the losses haven't always been shutout losses, but just like I mentioned, coming off the last fight, that was a particularly poorer performance and a fight which you don't look upon and think, oh, he's getting back into his best or he's got anything left in the tank, to be completely honest. But of course this fight is definitely going to answer that question as well. Also on this card though is Ryan versus Harper for the WBO World Welterweight title, in which I think Ryan will win via a unanimous decision. It's a great fight. It is a 50-50 fight really. It's a fight which, you know, obviously Ryan is coming off the performance against McCaskill where arguably she deserved a win and she didn't get it, and Harper's coming off a bit of a lackluster performance against Brackhouse, but it's still a good fight. I mean, arguably you would have to say possibly that Ryan's performance wasn't amazing against McCaskill because it wasn't clear enough for her to deserve the win, but Harper has fought at the top level for longer. She has that obvious more experience. Ryan has been building herself very well, very nicely, and I do believe though that, like I mentioned, Ryan will be able to win. I think the body work that she does, I think the general just more aggression and selection of the shots and accuracy in the process, I believe that she's going to be able to be too much for Harper. I think, to be fair, Harper doesn't really like the slower pace, and that's what Broadcast gave her, and she didn't really seem too comfortable, didn't really seem to do some of her best work from it. But Ryan, I think, is going to be a faster pace, so it could at points kind of spark up this fight and make this fight a little bit more of a possible stand and trade in at sometimes. But like I mentioned, I feel like Ryan will be the one who's the more aggressive puncher and the more active puncher if you are going and standing and trading with her. But to go back to the main event, Smith as a fighter, he's got great finishes. He's great at finishing off fights and knows when he has his opponent hurt, and he definitely does have that power in his punches. He's got good timing. Of course, he has momentum going in his favour, which adds to confidence and ability and self-belief. He's got that athleticism. He's very explosive, got good shot variation. I enjoyed the uppercut that he landed with the good timing on Maxwell. He's patient with his shots, but not too patient, which is always nice to see. Good mid-range fighter. He maintains that range quite well and can fight off the front and the back foot comfortably, and still, like I mentioned, keep that range well and set off his shots well off of a jab. He has a high IQ when he moves around the ring. He always seems like he's thinking and processing what's going on around him, and that's amazing to see for a younger fighter as well. He's got good hand speed, he's sharp, and overall attacking wise, a good, solid, clean boxer, which is always nice to see. It seems like he doesn't really necessarily fight opponents' fights, which is also, like I mentioned, nice to see. Negatives about him, obviously this is a big step up in opponents, so we're going to have to see if that is going to play a factor or not. He's got, of course, like I mentioned, he's used to fighting in his hometown and used to having all the pressure on him, but it's still going to be there. He's still going to be one expected to go out there and do the job. He can be caught with shots. Sometimes his chin is a little bit up in the air, or sometimes he can get a little bit too comfortable with his shots, and he can sometimes be caught with shots, and he seems to have a good chin and seems to be able to take a shot, but when it is a little bit in close as well, it can be a little bit sloppier at points, a little bit smothering at times, and so yeah, he can be hit at times. He's not always taking risks and necessary risks. Sometimes, like in the Allington fight, he can sometimes just wait out a bit too long and not really be willing to pull the trigger and become possibly a little bit too hesitant and not fully commit on what he wants to do, if that being counter-punch or if that being fight on the front foot. Also, sometimes head movement isn't always something in his forte, and the controlling of the pace is something which I feel like he is improving on, to be fair to him. But yeah, speak about his opponent, Zepeda. Of course, he's got that experience there, and it's probably is going to play a factor. And Zepeda, obviously, he has been stopped and he has been hurt, but that experience, he knows how to deal with them types of situations, unlike that of Smith, who, if he manages to be dropped, how is he going to deal with getting dropped? Zepeda, though, he's a high pressure fighter. He will let his hands go. He's got that power. He's proven that with multiple stoppages that he's got. He's typically, when you get him in a good mindset, he's determined and he has that will to win type mindset, and he can flip momentum and has also solid counter-punching abilities with solid timing as well, and so they're two things that are nice to see. He's versatile in his approaches. We never really necessarily know what type of approach we're going to see from Zepeda, and it's not always the best of things because sometimes he can get caught in two minds, or sometimes he doesn't really have a clear game plan, but he is versatile, and when he does want to switch up his game plan and switch up what he wants to do, he can do that. When he throws his combinations, he's not the most accurate of punchers, but when he does throw his combinations, that's when he a lot of his time sits down on his shots the most, and that's where some of his best shots can come from. He's a front foot type fighter a lot of the time, and he has solid shot variation as well. Negatives about him, I mean, the obvious thing of him being past his best and being stopped in the past as well, they're two things which of course are going to play a big factor, and they're going to be two clear questions which are going to have to be answered and will be answered, in my opinion, in this fight. It's the similar one to, I suppose, if you go for recent examples, Catterall Linares. I think the Linares was coming into this being that of branded as an ex-world level competitor who he was, and was a great boxer in his time, but he was on the slide a bit and wasn't really having much left, and Catterall knew what he had to do to be able to clearly win that, and he did. And this is, in my opinion, possibly going to end up going the same way, but you know, we'll have to wait and see. But I feel like if Zepeda does lose in bad fashion to this, I would possibly like to see him retire. I wouldn't like to see him try and drag out his career anymore. And Linares, credit to him, he did, I believe, retire after that, and so, you know, it's credit to him knowing that you don't really need to step down necessarily to that other lower level again. Also, to speak a bit more about Zepeda, he can hit, and he can be a bit hit and miss in his performances. At times he's a bit inconsistent. In his last fight, he was outboxed, he was outpaced, he struggled to get off the ring, he was overcommitting a lot in his punches, he didn't really gain a rhythm, didn't really try and make you feel uncomfortable in any sort of way, and Hitchins was pretty much just doing what he wanted in there and finding success. Hitchins did coast for a lot of the rounds, and it's not really the best of things to always do with Zepeda, because of course he does have the power, but when he has the ability and the movement that Hitchins has, you can kind of cruise through it. And I suppose if Hitchins probably would have turned up the pace a bit, he probably could have got a stoppage, but he didn't in the end, and he still managed to win clearly. He is slowing, and he's definitely not got any sort of speed seemingly in his punches anymore, and accuracy, like I mentioned, at times can be a problem. Smith is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Smith will win via TKO in round 10. I believe when he gets that confidence going, which normally comes in between the 5th to the 6th round, then he's going to improve, he's going to start to let his hands go a little bit more, and then I believe Zepeda will be definitely there to time when he comes in, and I believe Smith probably will fight a lot of his work on the back foot, but if he does land one big shot, then he'll be able to finish the fight and get him out of there, and I believe he will do, like I said, in round 10, and that will be, like I mentioned, setting up big fights for him. I mean, it's kind of fringe world level. I mean, a Sandor Martin fight has been talked about as a possible next opponent. I mean, you never know, somebody like, an Adam Azim, but it seems like that probably won't be the next fight. Hitchins would be a great fight as well, and there is lots of fringe world level guys as well, and so we'll have to wait and see which type of route he goes down next. But of course, I believe Matchroom's going to do the best for him, and hopefully, possibly, I'll be there in person to watch this fight. I still don't necessarily know if I'm going to be there or not, but we'll have to wait and see. If I am, then yeah, I'm sure it's going to be an amazing fight, an amazing card as well. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did indeed like the video. Subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.